Welcome to Haxby Shed. From the first time that I saw trepanning on David Wilks' channel, I wanted to make one of these, a tailstock trepanning tool. Just look at this, isn't it impressive? So in this series of videos, I'll explain how I made this and show you that it works. Welcome to part 2. For you, this is just the next clip, but it's actually been several weeks since I worked on this project. As we left it, I think I'd decided that these triangular carbides were just not what I needed. So I bought myself some Stelram SCMT07s, square profile, 4 in a box. I've bought myself 7mm square key steel and some screws for these, which are 3mm. Every time you change the design, it always costs you time or money or both. I'd like to say thanks to Tom from Hilltop Machine Works, who sent me this table when he sent me the sticker recently. So thanks for that, Tom. I'd also like to say that this is the first time I've used my shotgun microphone. You might have seen I put out a video about improving my audio, and hopefully this sounds a bit clearer with a bit less echo. I'm pretty sure these carbides are going to be okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is try some practice welds on what's left of this pipe here. I've drilled and tapped a piece of that 6mm square bar and clamped on that square carbide, and the screws are 3mm diameter by 0.5mm pitch. Now I won't be using the 6mm bar when I do this properly, but I just grabbed that because it was to hand, and it sits there quite nicely. It's only very roughly cut. I haven't machined that at all. I did it with a hacksaw, but I wanted to see what effect the welding would have on the thread, and because this is key steel, I may be able to harden and temper it, and again I can see what effect that has on the thread. I need to get myself set up with some sort of welding table. I have a plan, but that's for later. Now clearly I can't weld where the thread is, so I'm going to weld on the other end. I've got myself some acetone, so I'll clean it first and then give it a go. My test piece is very short, so I'd barely got started before I had to finish, but I'm quite pleased with that. I think if I was working on a much longer run and I could settle down to it, I think that would be okay. I'll just zoom in a bit if I can. I haven't polished it, that's just as it welded. So now I'm going to try a bit of bronze welding on the top edge. The filler wire that I used under here was mild steel A15 ER70. So now I'm going to use a bit of silicon bronze up here. Well, it's welded okay, but it hasn't gone as planned. I wanted the bronze to run into that channel there, and then I was going to machine this off the top, and that would provide a top fixing for this square piece of rod, but it's not running at all, so I need to think again. I am quite concerned about reinforcing this area, and I didn't weld in that pocket there because I would obviously weld over the hole that I drilled and tapped, but I can get the tap in from above, and maybe if I drill it 2.5mm, then weld it, then re-drill it using the first hole here as a guide, and then tap it from above, you know, perhaps this would make this solid enough here. All the force is really going to be around this area. There's no force along here. All that is a scrap channel. I think that bit of prototyping has told me what I need to know, so I can get on with the production version now. Now it's time to cut the tool pocket within this 7mm bar, like I did with this 6mm bar, but this time I'm going to use the lathe rather than the shaper. With the milling attachment I've just got more control, and I think it'll make a neater job. I've fitted this slotted table to the top slide and clamped my small machine vise to that, clamped up the 7mm bar, and now I'm just clocking it to make sure that it is truly horizontal. which it is. I need to machine this pocket 3.4 millimeters deep, so I'm doing it in 1 millimeter cuts, taking it easy. I'm just going to trim the length slightly. So that's the two pockets done for the carbides. The next thing I need to do is to spot through the hole in the carbides and drill the pilot drill through. Now, whilst I've been making this sequence of video, milling on the lathe, I've been using my wireless lapel mic. Before that I used the shotgun. Before that, on this project, I was using the camera microphone. Now, I only mention it because some people will know I've been trying to improve the audio on my channel, and I'm kind of hopeful that this wireless lapel mic will be the best. Anyway, I'm sure you'll tell me. Well, that's one carbide pocket drilled out for the carbide securing screw. It's a 2.5 millimeter drill for a 3 millimeter thread. I hope I've got the offset right, and I mean the offset in this direction. I don't have an XY table, so I'm having to do a lot of this lining up by eye. I've inverted the carbide tool to make it sit better in the pocket, and I'm using a 4 millimeter drill as a pilot to locate the centre of that hole. Hopefully that'll be right. This carbide has got to sit off this edge by about 2¼ millimeters, and it brings the screw hole very close to the edge of this square bar. But if the welding goes right, hopefully it'll be reinforced sufficiently. Hard to get those hole positions right by eye, but I think they are correct. My wireless microphone batteries went flat at this point, but here I'm cutting a relief channel required at just one side. Okay, so I'm set up to weld. I'm going to use the pedal. If I try and use the trigger, that's where my trigger finger would be, here. And I've got all this distance, and I'm trying to control this quite heavy thing. But if I use the foot pedal, I can hold it like this, as you've seen all those experts do on YouTube. And what I'm hoping is I can run the cup along that and guide it between there and this edge here. And if I just lay the rod over, hopefully I can get a smooth weld. Now, it's quite difficult, I find, to operate the pedal. I find if I'm concentrating on this, I'm not concentrating on the pedal. My foot comes off, the weld goes cold, it goes in fits and starts. But let's see what we can do. I found that as I start the weld, the HF strikes up, and that causes interference on my wireless microphone. But once the weld gets started, the microphone is fine. Well, that wouldn't win any prizes. Not bad here, bit of porosity here perhaps, and it's quite inconsistent. But I'm only welding this on to form a ledge for a scrap channel. There's no load on it there. But I need to weld in this area now to strengthen and support this. Now I'll end up blocking off this hole, but I can re-drill that hole from the other side, hopefully, using this as a guide. So that's my next step. I'll do that off camera because it's quite difficult. My torch was too far over at an angle. I should have been much further up like that, I think. That's the second side done. I was quite happy with that actually, much more consistent, particularly this first section between here and here. If I could do welds like that all day, I'd be happy. I had to build it up here with several goes, so a few bubbles, but otherwise okay. I think I'll clean this up now. Carefully tapping. Both carbides are in place. I'm happy with this one. It stands proud of this scrap channel, so it will cut a bigger diameter than the scrap channel. I'm not so happy with this one. I would have liked it further over this way to cut more towards the centre of the tube. I'm a bit worried that it won't cut a diameter big enough and the core will bind inside the tube. We'll see, won't we? I wasn't confident that the carbide was supported properly at this corner or on this edge here. So I've just put a bit of bronze on it, and I'll just file that to suit that surface there. And if I need to, I'll machine this out when it's on the lathe. Had to be very careful. Did that at about 25 amps. I didn't want to put bronze into this threaded bit there. But it survives yet another operation. Everything shakes. Even the dog shakes.